What happens when one of the most talked about figures in modern celebrity culture sits down for what should be a friendly late-night chat and turns it into a confrontation that shocks everyone watching? In just 38 seconds, a simple question about charity work would ignite a firestorm that would see Meghan Markle escorted off the set of The Late Show, leaving Stephen Colbert standing at his desk, the audience in complete silence, and millions of viewers absolutely stunned by what they had just witnessed. This is the story of that night. The evening started like any other taping of The Late Show. Stephen Colbert walked out to his usual thunderous applause, delivered his monologue, and settled into his desk with that familiar, easy smile. His producers had landed a major guest, someone who rarely did American talk shows anymore. Well, Meghan Markle was in town, and after weeks of negotiation, she had agreed to sit down for what was supposed to be a lighthearted conversation about her latest philanthropic ventures. When Meghan walked out, the audience gave her a warm reception. She was wearing an expensive-looking cream-colored suit, her hair perfectly styled, and she carried herself with the poise of someone who knew every camera angle. She sat down across from Stephen, crossed her legs, and offered a practiced smile. "Welcome to the show," Stephen said warmly. "It's great to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Meghan replied, "though I must say I was a bit surprised by the dressing room situation." Stephen laughed, thinking she was joking. "Oh, what, not enough bottled water?" "Actually, I was told I would have the main dressing room, the one with the proper lighting and space. Instead, I was given what appeared to be a storage closet." The audience laughed nervously. Stephen's smile tightened, just slightly. "Well, I apologize if there was any confusion, but all our guests use the same preparation areas. We try to keep things pretty egalitarian around here." Meghan's expression didn't change. Egalitarian. Interesting word choice. I would have thought someone of my profile would warrant certain accommodations. "Someone of your profile," Stephen repeated, his tone still friendly, but with a hint of edge. "And what profile is that exactly?" "I think you know exactly who I am and what I represent," Meghan said. "I'm not just another actress promoting a film. I've lived a life that few people can even imagine." "Right, of course," Stephen said. "So I'm trying to steer things back on track. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about. Your charity work has been in the news quite a bit. Tell us about your latest project." Meghan leaned forward slightly. "Before we get into that, I need to address something. Your production team sent me a list of topics that were off limits for tonight. Topics that I specifically said were fine to discuss. Who made that decision?" Stephen glanced at his notes, clearly thrown off. "I'm not sure what you're referring to. We have a standard process where we discuss with publicists what makes sense to cover in a 12-minute segment." "My publicist approved everything," Meghan said sharply. "Everything. But someone on your end decided to edit that list. Was it you, Stephen? Did you personally decide what I'm allowed to talk about?" "I can assure you, I didn't personally edit any list," Stephen said, maintaining his composure. "But we do have producers who work with all guests to make sure we have a good conversation that fits the format of the show." "The format of the show," Meghan said with a slight laugh. "Is that what you call controlling the narrative? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're trying to silence me." The audience had gone completely quiet. Stephen sat back in his chair. "Meghan, I promise you, nobody is trying to silence you. You're literally on national television right now. You have a platform to say whatever you'd like." "Within your approved parameters," she shot back. "Within the parameters of a late-night talk show, yes," Stephen said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "This isn't a 2-hour documentary. We have commercial breaks. We have other guests. We have a schedule." Meghan crossed her arms. "I see. So, when you have politicians on, do you limit what they can discuss? Or is this special treatment reserved just for me?" "We work with every guest the exact same way," Stephen said firmly. "Politicians, actors, authors, everyone. We have conversations, not speeches." "Conversations where you maintain control," Meghan said. "It's my show," Stephen replied. and for the first time, there was real steel in his voice. Yes, I maintain a certain structure. That's literally my job. Your job, Meghan repeated. Tell me, Stephen, how much are you paid for this job? Because I'm curious about the pay disparity in late-night television. Stephen blinked. I'm sorry. What does that have to do with anything we're discussing? I'm simply pointing out the systems of inequality that exist even in spaces that claim to be progressive, Meghan said. You sit here every night, making millions, while women in this industry fight for scraps. I'm not sure what you want me to say to that, Stephen said. I don't set my own salary, and I've been pretty vocal about supporting equality in the industry. Vocal, Meghan said with a dismissive wave. Everyone in Hollywood is vocal about equality. But what are you actually doing? What are you sacrificing? I'm not here to discuss my personal finances with you, Stephen said, his tone now noticeably cooler. And I'm certainly not going to apologize for having a successful career. Of course not, Meghan said, because you're a man. Men never have to apologize for their success. But women, we're constantly questioned, constantly doubted, constantly told we're too much or not enough. Stephen leaned forward. Meghan, I understand you've faced challenges and scrutiny that I cannot fully comprehend. But right now, in this moment, nobody is attacking you. I invited you here for a conversation. A conversation on your terms, she said. Yes, on my show, we do things on my terms, Stephen said. Just like if I came on your podcast, we'd do things on your terms. That's how this works. Meghan stood up suddenly. The audience gasped. I don't think I need to sit here and be lectured about how things work. Stephen remained seated, looking up at her. I'm not lecturing you. I'm trying to have a dialogue. A dialogue implies equal standing, Meghan said. And clearly, you see yourself as superior in this situation. I don't see myself as superior to anyone, Stephen said quietly. But I do have a responsibility to my audience and to this show. Your responsibility, Meghan said, her voice rising. What about your responsibility to treat your guests with respect? To honor the agreements that were made? Every agreement has been honored, Stephen said, standing up now to face her. You're the one who came out here with an agenda that has nothing to do with the charity work you're supposedly here to promote. Don't you dare tell me what my agenda is, Meghan snapped. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You're right, I don't, Stephen said. But I know what's happening right now. And right now, you're being hostile to me and my staff for no apparent reason. No apparent reason? Meghan's voice went up another notch. I've been disrespected from the moment I arrived at this building. The dressing room, the topic restrictions, and now this condescending attitude from you. Meghan, I've been nothing but professional, Stephen said, his voice steady but firm. If you felt there were issues with your accommodations, you could have addressed them privately with our producers. Instead, you came out here and turned this into a confrontation. Because that's the only way people like you listen, Meghan said. When women speak quietly, we're ignored. When we speak up, we're called difficult. I'm not calling you difficult, Stephen said. I'm saying that this conversation has gone completely off the rails. And I'm trying to understand why. You want to understand why? Meghan laughed bitterly. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of playing nice. I'm tired of pretending that everything is fine when people in this industry treat others as beneath them. I have never treated you as beneath me, Stephen said, his voice rising for the first time. I welcomed you onto this show with respect and professionalism. You're the one who came out here looking for a fight. I came here looking for basic human decency, Meghan shot back. And you've received it, Stephen said. What you haven't received is special treatment, and apparently, that's what you were expecting. The audience was completely silent now, watching this exchange with shock and discomfort. Meghan's face flushed red. Special treatment? How dare you? After everything I've dealt with. The scrutiny, the media attacks, the racism, And you have the audacity to accuse me of wanting special treatment. I'm not minimizing anything you've experienced, Stephen said carefully. But your past struggles don't give you the right to come on my show and attack me and my team who have done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong, Meghan repeated. Is that what you tell yourself? That you're one of the good ones? Stephen's jaw tightened. I try to be a decent person and do a good job. That's all I can control. Well, you're failing at both right now, Meghan said coldly. The audience gasped again. Stephen stood very still for a moment, then spoke quietly. I think we're done here. Oh, we're done when you say we're done, Meghan said. Of course, because you're in charge. And you have all the power. I have the power to decide what happens on my show. Yes, Stephen said, and I'm deciding that this interview is over. You can't just end the interview, Meghan said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. I absolutely can, Stephen said. This is my show. These are my rules, and I don't have to sit here and be insulted. Insulted? Meghan's voice was incredulous. You think you're the one being insulted here? You have no idea what real insults feel like. Meghan, I'm going to ask you one more time to please leave the stage, Stephen said, his voice calm but unyielding. And if I don't? Meghan challenged. Stephen didn't answer. Instead, he looked off camera and nodded. Within seconds, 2 production assistants appeared from the wings. Meghan's eyes widened. You cannot be serious right now. I am completely serious, Stephen said. You are welcome to leave on your own, or these gentlemen will escort you off the set. This is outrageous, Meghan said, but she was backing away from the desk now. You'll regret this. Everyone will know how I was treated here. I'm sure they will, Stephen said quietly, and they can judge for themselves. The production assistants moved closer. Meghan held up her hands. Don't touch me. I'm leaving. But this isn't over, Stephen. Not by a long shot. She turned and walked toward the stage exit, her heels clicking loudly in the silent studio. Just before she disappeared into the wings, she turned back one more time. You're just another man protecting his kingdom. I hope you sleep well tonight knowing you silenced a woman's voice. I didn't silence anything, Stephen called after her. You said everything you wanted to say. The audience heard every word. Meghan didn't respond. She simply turned and walked off the stage. The heavy door closed behind her with an audible thud. Stephen stood at his desk, breathing heavily, his face flushed. The audience sat in stunned silence. Nobody knew if they should applaud or stay quiet. Nobody knew what to do. Stephen ran a hand through his hair and looked directly at the camera. Well, that happened, he said, with a weak attempt at a smile. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I promise we'll have a much lighter conversation. The commercial break music started, but the cameras kept rolling for a few extra seconds, catching Stephen's expression as he sat back down at his desk and put his head in his hands. The audience could see him say something to one of the producers, who rushed over, though the microphones didn't pick up the words. When the show came back from commercial, Stephen was composed again, his professional mask back in place. He made a brief statement about the previous segment, keeping it simple and factual. Sometimes conversations don't go the way we plan. We invited a guest here tonight for what we hoped would be an interesting discussion about important work. Instead, things took an unexpected turn. I want to be clear that everyone who works on this show treated our guest with professionalism and respect. We're proud of the environment we've created here, and we stand by how we conduct ourselves. He didn't mention Meghan by name again. He didn't elaborate on what had happened. He simply moved forward with the rest of his show, introducing his next guest with practiced ease, though anyone paying close attention could see the tension still present in his shoulders, the slight tightness around his eyes. Backstage, according to crew members who were present, Meghan had already left the building. She hadn't stopped to speak with producers or apologize to any staff members. She had simply collected her belongings from the dressing room she had complained about and walked out to her waiting car, her phone already pressed to her ear. The studio audience filed out after the taping ended, buzzing with energy and disbelief. They had come expecting laughs and maybe some mild celebrity gossip. Instead, they had witnessed something raw and uncomfortable, a confrontation that felt too real for the usually polished world of late-night television. One audience member was heard saying to her friend as they left, "I've been coming to these tapings for years. I've never seen anything like that." She just kept pushing, and he tried so hard to keep it professional. Another viewer commented, "I felt bad for Stephen. He didn't do anything wrong. She came out there looking for a fight." But not everyone saw it that way. Some felt that Meghan had legitimate grievances, even if her delivery was confrontational. Others wondered what had really happened behind the scenes before the cameras started rolling. What was undeniable, however, was the way the confrontation had unfolded. The escalation had been swift and brutal. What started as a comment about a dressing room had spiraled into accusations of sexism, power dynamics, and silencing women's voices. And through it all, Stephen had remained remarkably composed, trying again and again to redirect the conversation, to find common ground, to salvage what was quickly becoming a disaster. He had only raised his voice once, and even then, it was more firm than angry. He had set boundaries clearly and enforced them when they were crossed. He had given Meghan multiple opportunities to reset the conversation, to move forward in a productive way. But each time, she had chosen confrontation over collaboration. The moment when he finally called for the production assistants was telling. It wasn't done in anger or spite. It was a simple statement of fact. The interview was over. She could leave on her own terms. Or she could be escorted out. Those were the options. There was no negotiation, no debate. The decision had been made. And in that moment, Meghan seemed to realize that she had pushed too far. The bravado that had carried her through the confrontation faltered. She was no longer in control of the situation, if she ever had been. Stephen had drawn a line, and she was on the wrong side of it. Her final words before leaving, about silencing women's voices, rang hollow to many who had watched the exchange. She had been given a platform. She had been given time to speak. She had said exactly what she wanted to say. The issue wasn't that she had been silenced. The issue was that she had used that platform to attack rather than engage, to accuse rather than discuss. So Stephen's response to her final accusation was perhaps the most powerful moment of the entire confrontation. "You said everything you wanted to say. The audience heard every word." It was simple, factual, and undeniable. There had been no censorship, no interruption until things became untenable. She had been given every opportunity to have a meaningful conversation. The show's crew gathered after the taping, many of them still processing what had happened. The segment producers who had worked on preparing for Meghan's appearance were particularly shaken. They had done everything by the book, followed all the standard procedures, communicated clearly with her team. And yet, they had been accused of disrespect, and worse. One producer was overheard saying, "I triple-checked everything. The dressing room assignment, the topic list, the timing. It was all standard. I don't understand what went wrong." But maybe nothing had gone wrong on the production side. Maybe Meghan had simply arrived with expectations that didn't match reality and had chosen to make that mismatch into a public confrontation. Maybe she had wanted to make a statement about power and control and had used Stephen's show as the stage for that statement. Whatever her motivations, the result was clear. She had created a moment that would be talked about for a long time to come. But not in the way she might have hoped. Instead of being seen as a brave voice speaking truth to power, many viewers saw someone who had been treated fairly and responded with hostility. Instead of highlighting legitimate issues of inequality in the industry, she had made the conversation about herself and her grievances, or real or perceived. Stephen, on the other hand, had navigated an impossible situation with grace and firmness. He had tried to be accommodating without being a pushover. He had defended his team without being aggressive. He had set boundaries without being cruel. And when it became clear that the situation was beyond salvaging, he had made the difficult decision to end it, knowing full well that it would create controversy and criticism. That takes courage. It takes conviction. It takes a clear understanding of where the line is and a willingness to enforce it even when doing so is uncomfortable or unpopular. The audience in that studio had watched a masterclass in maintaining composure under fire. They had seen someone be attacked personally and professionally and respond with measured firmness rather than anger. They had seen someone give multiple chances for de-escalation before finally saying enough. And they had seen someone refuse to be bullied on their own show, in their own space, regardless of the celebrity status or public profile of the person doing the bullying. Because that's what it was, when you strip away all the language about power dynamics and silencing voices. It was one person trying to dominate a conversation and a space through confrontation and accusation, and another person saying, no, that's not how this works. The question Meghan had asked, "You can't just end the interview," revealed a fundamental misunderstanding. Yes, he could. It was his show. His name was in the title. And more importantly, it was his responsibility to maintain a certain standard of discourse and respect. When that standard was violated repeatedly, when attempts at correction failed, when the situation became actively hostile, he had every right, and indeed every responsibility, to bring it to a close. The fact that this needed to be explained, that Meghan seemed genuinely surprised that actions have consequences even for celebrities, speaks to a broader issue about accountability and entitlement in celebrity culture. But in that studio, on that night, the issue was resolved simply and clearly. The interview was over. The guest was asked to leave. When she didn't leave quickly enough, assistance was offered. And then she was gone. The silence that followed her exit was deafening. It was the sound of an audience processing something unexpected and uncomfortable. It was the sound of a host gathering himself after a confrontation he never wanted or anticipated. It was the sound of a show moving forward, because that's what shows do. They continue, regardless of what chaos might have just unfolded. And continue it did. Stephen finished his show, the band played, the remaining guests came out and had pleasant conversations. The audience eventually relaxed and laughed again. The machine of late-night television kept running because that's what it's designed to do. But for those who were there, for those who watched it happen in real time, that moment of silence after Meghan's exit was the most honest moment of the entire night. It was a collective breath being held, a collective wondering of what comes next, a collective recognition that something significant had just occurred. Something that started with a complaint about a dressing room and ended with a guest being escorted off the stage. In something that revealed character and choices and consequences in the harsh light of national television. Something that would be discussed and debated and analyzed for a long time to come. But in the end, it was simple. A host tried to conduct an interview. A guest chose confrontation. Boundaries were set and then enforced, and everyone watching got to see exactly how that unfolded, word by word, moment by moment, all the way to that final door closing with a thud.